early, you poured yourself a bottle of Pinot Noir or Chenin Blanc or Cabernet, and now you're sitting at your phone, at your computer, at your laptop, on your couch, and you're ready to rock with us. Conversations at Hip Hop Closet. We're gonna get started in a few seconds. I just wanna get, you know, there's always that space when you first get on live and it's that one person and they looking at you and you looking at them. So we wanna get this room kind of filled. This is a very important conversation. I just want to start off by thanking everybody who's been rocking with us for the last 3 weeks. We were just talking about how this has really become a labor of love. It's been easy to curate, but as we move week to week, obviously we want to continue this momentum. And so, you know, we just thank everybody for joining us. We thank you for, you know, taking the time out to... Oh, we got some feedback on that? I think you got to turn the volume down on that one.
The volume got down.
I
might have to turn it on.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Okay. So we good to go. Kai, just let me know if we ready. If we got, you know.
No, we're ready over here.
Christian
We're good
say,
to go.
you know, if it's more than 2 or more people in
Yes,
this name
no.
gathered.
Let's
Tell
go.
us where you,
We're
tell
here,
us
we're
where
here.
you're checking in from. I would love to
Right.
know.
Oh yeah,
And-
everyone wants to know.
Right,
Y'all
where you
checking
at?
in
On
from.
the heels of all of that, if you like what
Kenya,
you
we're
hear,
back. Kenya's
tell
in the
2
building.
friends, people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Tell
tell
2
them,
friends, but
tell
tell
them.
2
Spread the word.
friends.
Spread the word. So we started off with Ralph McDaniels, icon, hip hop legend. All of us knew him. All of us grew up watching his work. Then week 2 we went to Milk, icon, hip hop legend. All of us grew up watching his work. And we spoke to each of them, and they each gave us their origin stories and how they got to the level they achieved and where they're at now, and all of the great things about their journey. This week, we have another icon, another hip-hop legend, someone who I consider like a big sister. Her and I have had multiple conversations. This is not the first time that her and I have sat and talked about her journey or the journey of life or the importance of the work that we do. But for many of you, this may be the first time you really hear it in depth. So I really want you to understand the importance of this conversation. I want to introduce her the right way. She's the founder and creator of Walkerwear. Walkerwear is an iconic hip-hop fashion brand. 40 years, we're talking decades at this point, of doing the work of providing lifestyle and fashion to our culture. But that's not all she does. We're going to get into every morsel of it. I promise you this is going to be an amazing conversation. I'd like to introduce to some and to present to others my sister, your sister, April Walker. What's going on, April?
What's going on? Great to see you.
It's
Wow,
good to see you.
that's
It's
an
good to
amazing
see you.
intro. Can everyone just shout out and say he's a natural? Like, for real, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
appreciate
okay.
it.
There's like black.
Yeah, it's
Stansky.
It's easy. I'm in a room
They're
of
checking
family.
in from like some dope places to Tokyo, Nebraska.
Nice.
Yeah, shout out to
I
Tokyo,
love it.
Nebraska.
That's
BK's in the building,
That's
Newburgh,
live.
New York, and yeah.
That's live.
Thank
That's
you for
live.
checking
Okay.
in and just being here with us.
So I want to start, and we're going to start this in a very unique way.
Okay.
Instead of asking you where you began and the framework question to start
Right.
an interview, I want to kind of have you tie in the last 2 weeks, because we had Ralph McDaniels talk about when he was starting off how he worked with you,
Okay.
and then we had Milk talk about when he started off how he worked with you.
Okay.
And so we're at a space now where kind of you're tying in this, you can tie in this conversation in terms of that early period of the culture and specifically your work with those two, but in a bigger sense, your work in that time frame. So you can kind of just start there on tying those pieces together for us.
Wow, so this is the 80s we're talking about. If we're talking about when I was starting to work with Milk and when I was starting to work with Ralph McDaniels, the legend, both of them. The 80s was very different in Brooklyn, and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what I would be doing, but I knew that I knew, let's not say I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I didn't want to work for someone else. And it just so happened that hip hop was my North Star. So the activation for me was fashion. And I started 5 blocks from my house. It was at a shop called Fashion in Effect, 212 Green Avenue. And it was between Cambridge and Grand Avenue. And like I said, Brooklyn was very different then, but I felt safe because it was my neighborhood. And I just wanted to serve my community with things that we weren't being served with at that time. And those were the uniforms of culture that spoke to us. We were making things, we were going to the stores, buying them, ripping up our jeans, manipulating, you know, doing what we do, making it our own. But we couldn't go into the stores, we couldn't go into the department stores, into the fashion. Wherever you were shopping, there was nothing for us at that time. So I opened Fashion in Effect with $1 in the dream, so to speak. And it was literally like a diamond in the rough, a homemade sign. And we went to Pearl Paints.
Pearl Paints.
Taking you back. For
Right.
those of you that
Decal.
don't know Pearl Paints was on Canal Street, and it was this mecca for New York City artists. And it was a real experience. And that's when I first went, even earlier, for the bicentennial. My father took me there, and we made a sailboat. And then it was for the bicentennial, and he said, we're going to make these.
For 1976.
Yeah,
Right.
we're going to make these. I was really young then, but this was my first entrepreneurial gym, and he sparked that interest. And it was like, we're going to go and we're going to sell t-shirts. And I'm like, my father was always different in that sense, so sometimes it would feel embarrassing. And I was young, so we drew a sailboat. You know, the 1976, we went to Pearl Paints on Canal Street. We got the acetate with the screen print. We made it. We went and did the whole thing. We stayed up all night, made these t-shirts. We bought them wholesale. He took me through this whole process, and then went out the next day and sold them all. And then he showed me his wad, and he said, you know, you just did this. I remember that, you know, I remember it like it was yesterday. But fast forward now, I'm opening my first shop. I was 21. I go to Pearl Paints. I buy some foam board because we couldn't buy an awning. We didn't have that kind of budget. So we just were getting in where we fit in, as they say. And we made it happen. We made our own homemade sign that lasted the whole time we had the shop. And it was called Fashion in Effect, and we did it kind of graffiti style, and it was just this, I say energy feeds energy. Once we opened the shop, 2 friends told 2 friends, and it became a magnet for hip hop culture. We did everything from airbrushing to acrylic painting to velour sweatsuits to leather to Easter outfits to whatever. And one day MC Light told Milk and Giz to come see me because they were getting ready for a new cover of their album, and they came in and they said, we want to do these suits. Can you make them? I said, sure. Fingers crossed. It worked out. And then they came back and they said, we want you to style our video. Can you style? I knew nothing about styling, you guys, but I said, sure. And I'm figuring out what styling is, doing my homework, and we styled our first video. But from that experience, I always give Milk and Giz a lot of credit because they opened the door. And we opened a styling division in Fashion in Effect that created a whole new revenue stream for us. And it became another component to our business model. And it helped us as we eventually started our own brand to product place and do all these other things that elevated our growth. So Milk has been instrumental, and we remain friends throughout. We've done so many projects together. We'll talk about that later. But then you asked me about Ralph. Ralph, I can remember one time seeing Ralph on the bus in the 80s going to Reese Beach.
That's old
That's
school.
how
That's
far
old
back.
school.
And I just remember he was that dude on Video Music Box that I would run home to watch and tape or whatever on my VCR. And here he is on a bus, and I'm like, wow, that's Ralph McDaniels, you know. So fast forward, now I'm styling, and I'm trying to remember how I originally was introduced. I don't know. I know I worked on a few projects, but eventually we crossed paths, and he hired me for Finesse and Sequence for a lot of, we did a lot of work together. But I worked with Hype Williams was there. He was interning at that time for Ralph Classic Concepts. Yeah, and Tuffy, and I met so many good people, Constance, and it was really an experience.
So a couple of things. You touched on some things I wanted to touch on because, you know, I grew up right up the block.
You did. You
Yeah.
were like, when I talked
192
about
Green
Cambridge,
Avenue.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that was right there.
Yeah, like I was right up the block. And I could remember being a teen and walking past your store and the energy that your store held in terms of hip hop. To me, it felt like a secret. Like it felt like
Right.
like a best kept secret, you know. So for me, like, you know, and you know this, I used to live on Pacific and Nostrand.
Right.
And when I moved on Green Avenue, walking to that corner and seeing your store, it was like, well, wow, we got Murray's Corner on Nostrand Avenue. We got Vim on
Yeah.
Nostrand Avenue. And yet this thing here has more energy than all of that, and no one knows that it's, in my mind.
Right.
I'm like, wow, my friends don't know that this
Right.
is here. You know, seeing hip hop ultimately where we become legends coming in and out of that door. You know, I swear I can remember every time I would walk down to the store, I would like peek in, like just to see
Right.
what was happening.
Right.
That entrepreneurial spirit that you had, you spoke about Papa Jack, who's an amazing dude. Tell me a bit about the onset of your like you said, well, I ain't want to work for anybody, but there's a hustle associated with it. Like, so for an entrepreneur to really get solid in that spirit, he or she has to have a win. And sometimes that win is a lemonade stand, or just selling t-shirts, or just
Right.
flipping
There's
some
a whole
money.
bunch of hustles.
Right, but tell me about the beginnings of that, right, and where those wins turned into an entrepreneurial spirit.
It depends on what we call a win. I think that for me, I was blessed enough to have parents that always ignited you can versus you can't.
That's a win.
That's a win.
Right.
And, you know, they had us so busy that we pass out at night, like with dance lessons, with singing lessons, with modern dance, with jazz, but the whole thing, gymnastics. You know, we had little idle time growing up, but we spent times in the museums, and art and culture were very important to my family in terms of introducing the world to us, even though we were in Brooklyn.
Right.
So I think that ignited imagination. And my father was a dreamer, and my mom was like, somebody has to be grounded here because you up in the sky. You know what I mean? So she was the organizer. She was very cerebral, very smart, very organized. She made sure we went to private school at that time. New York was different. You know, I went to Brooklyn Tech, but I ended up transferring to Bishop Lachlan. And I think that changed my life, going to Bishop Lachlan. And it gave me the structure I needed at that time. But yeah, it was all of those things were a win. And then, even though they really ignited our passion, they definitely were frugal. Like, I remember my father, when I wanted my first pair of croquettes, he was like, $14.99. I remember that. And I'm like, he's like, you're going to have to buy those on your own, or you're going to keep these rejects.
Right.
And I remember I saved up and I figured it out, and I had them on, and he was like, okay. You know, but it was the hustle. It was figuring it out and knowing that they would do. He had 3 girls. My mother and father had 3 girls, and we grew up on Madison between Nostrand and Marcy, and then moved to Clinton Hill. So it was always like, you know, to keep it all together. But I think that's where I was like, I wanted to be fly. My father was in the music business, always chasing that music dream. So I grew up around jazz, and you know, jazz cats can be on their own program
Right.
and be different.
Right.
And so I think watching that
Right.
and watching just the growth, and then we went into R&B. And by the time I was in high school, I was going to Zanzibar's and The Fever and Red Parrot and Broadway Internationals and Copacabana. When I was young, I was able to get in all these spots before I was of age because my father was managing these artists,
Right.
D-Train and
Right.
all these guys. So I saw all of that world, and they were all fly. I couldn't sing, but by the time I was 13, I was doing gymnastics. I was doing gymnastics classes with toddlers at Cadman's Church. I would take the basement, charge $5. By the time
That's
I
the
was like
spirit.
15 and 16, I was selling pots and pans. You remember the Medina brothers?
Mm-hmm.
I was selling with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I was, you know, like a junior in Lockland, I was going on payday because I worked at the senior citizens home across the street. I'd go and spend my
The one
check
right there on Green.
there across the street.
Right, across the street from Lockland.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
And I'd go and spend my check on linen suits, on silk dresses, and go sell to women on payday. So I always was thinking like, how am I gonna get it? And I remember walking into Dapper Dan, and that was the light bulb for me. Like, I never owned fashion, but I was going to school for business and communications, and it just all came together right there.
You know, I met Dad.
You did?
I told you that. I didn't tell you
No,
that. I'm gonna send you a
tell
picture.
me.
He was on Green Ave.
Oh,
It's a
lied?
crazy story. Shout out to Dad. Love you, brother.
Always.
He was in Brooklyn. I said your name. He hugged me. Oh, April is a good person.
I just was texting him.
He's dope. He's dope.
I got emotional today talking about him in another interview, and I just actually texted him and told him like, and this is if he gets this, we owe everything to Dad for paving the way for all of us.
Right.
So I will always really give him all the flowers because he's so worthy.
Right. So the stage was kind of set for you. You had a father that was in that
world,
energy
in
of
that
fashion
energy.
and lifestyle and music
And being different, like
Right.
you don't have to be. I remember being all going out in high school. I had on Sassoon this, Sassoon that, same color penny loafers. I was leaving. I thought I was so fly. He was like, "Don't do that." I remember that, and I was so like, "What?"
He killed your whole vibe.
He was like, "You don't. It's too matchy.
And you
Mix
too
it up.
matchy,
Like you gotta
right.
mix it up." And he was telling me that stripes could go with the. He was telling me all this stuff, and I was like, "That's too much jazz stuff for me." Like, but now I get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that if I didn't have someone who was like, when they go right, you go left, I might have went right.
Right, right. Tell me about when all of these ingredients, because that's what it is, right? They're all ingredients. The
Yep.
experiences,
Absolutely.
the wisdom, the knowledge, right? The failures, the wins. At what point does it all become walkaway? Tell me about the beginning of that.
So I'm at Fashion in Effect, and I have to shout out teamwork because I had a dream team like no other. And I think that was just the stars lining up because hip hop was in this stage in the 80s of this spirit of entrepreneurship kicking in. Like, we really have something special here. It's bigger than us. And like lifting that up authentically and it turning into a business, right? And so I was seeing it. I went to Fresh Fest. I'm seeing Madison Square Garden sell out. And I'm like, this is it, you know? But I remember my customers were talking to me. They would ask me, I want more leg room. I want deeper pockets. I want you to lower the crotch. I want my bottoms to be able to fit inside of my Timbs or right over. Over and over, you'd hear these things. And we have to think at this landscape of this time, New York City was now exploding with hip hop, and at this time in the clubs, we actually danced. So, you know, Heavy D and the Boys, you know, like everybody was moving. And right before this tsunami of hip hop hit, things were constricting. People were wearing their pants tight, everything, you know, you think Calvin Klein, you think all of those brands were very fitted. So
people need to hear this because fashion is actually cyclical.
Right, and that's why
cyclical.
it's come back around.
Right.
But you couldn't even put your hands in your pockets if you were a male at that time. It wouldn't even go all the way in.
Right.
So these were some of the hence stash pockets and all these names. We just wanted bigger pockets to fit more stuff in.
Right.
So I started making those things, listening to the needs of my customers. And once I started doing that, it just was inspiration for me. I started thinking about if I was to do a line, what that would look like. And I was very inspired by hip hop, East Coast and West Coast. For those that don't know, like originally I was born in LA, but I've claimed Brooklyn because I've been here all my life. But I remember NWA had a really big impact on my life. In that first video I saw, I literally got on the plane and went out there. Just
Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, that whole, when he came out of the jail, what song was that?
I think that's Straight
Outta
Outta
Was
Compton.
that? Yeah. That was everything for me. And I just remember just wanting to now experience it in person. My cousin, shout out to Diane Reeves, is Diane Reeves, and she was doing an award show, I think the Grammys or one of those shows. And so she invited me and I went and I experienced it. Now I'm about 21, 22. And I was just like coming back with all that inspiration. So people started asking me, you should do a line. Because we were making this one suit and it was the Rough and Rugged suit. And it was this bull denim with contrast stitching. We did it in different colorways, but we worked from the floor up. So we thought at that time it was Timberlands and 40 Belows. And New York was very grimy, gritty. You have to think it was different than it is now. It was like you walked out the house with a screw face. You know, it was nothing nice.
It was the Ed Koch era.
It was that era,
It was the
for
NYPD
sure. It
when
was
they was
all
killing
of that.
people era, right?
Yeah.
It was the crack era,
If you
right?
look at the stats, you will see how many people got killed.
Yeah,
during that time.
1986, it was like 2,600 people in the city that
War.
got murdered. It was
war.
war. It was
Here.
war.
And so that's a real thing. So the clothes reflected that. I remember earth tones were important to me. Neutrals were. It wasn't a bright city. Like we weren't wearing real bright colors like other places.
Right.
But we did. Brooklyn was very earth tones. We were understated. Less is more. But we were fly. So I wanted to reflect that. And that is how I was inspired to start walking wear. Through durability, timeless classics. I wanted things that you could wear now, would have for years. I wanted things, it was important for me to think about people's status. So you could wear something this season or next season, and you could wear it to work, or you could wear it in the club. You know, all of those, dress it up or dress it down, all of those things were considerations. And that's how I started my first line, thinking about all of those factors.
You already considered yourself a designer, obviously.
Yeah, it's funny, it took me about 10 years.
To consider yourself a designer.
To really be like, okay, it's really serious. Like, and I'd done a bunch of things, but like I said, I reverse engineered into the fashion industry following hip hop, and I never looked at what the fashion industry was doing on purpose. And I think me being naive to fear helped me to just do what I felt and pour that out. And then I always really encouraged my team to be on the left instead of the right too.
Right. But the reason why I asked that is because really what you just said in your answer, you kind of gave this analytical paradigm to fashion. Like you discussed tones, you discussed stitching, you discussed the entire scope of the environment you were selling for.
I was pragmatic, and I'll say I was creative and visionary. It took me years to understand the fashion industry because I had to immerse myself around people that were experienced in the fashion industry for years.
Cool. Like who?
Like the tailors, like the seamstresses. I had a few Bell, there was Bell Uptown, there was Dapper Dan. I had borrowed some of their tailors to learn because we were doing the same kinds of things. So they taught me a lot, and then I learned how to cut and sew. Randy, he's not with us anymore, but he was my foreman at Fashion in Effect, and he knew how to cut and sew, so that's how I learned. Success Leaves Clues, so I would literally get the liquidation section in the New York Times and look at Sundays, and I'd go into the fashion district and just go to all those auctions and sit there and look, what are they buying, what are Juki's, Singer Industrials, okay,
What
and
are they buying?
you know what I mean, and
That's right.
understanding from those showrooms, from those factories, what it was. Am I in a leather factory? Everything was a different purpose, and so understanding that was important to what I was making, because we were doing everything from cotton to jersey to leather, velour, full denim.
Who was the first celebrity that rocked wool?
That's a great question. I probably Shaggy or Shinehead.
Shine.
Oh, that was Fashion in Effect, so let me take that back. It wasn't. It would probably be, it might have been Biggie.
Give me I need to talk time for a minute, and I apologize because you're giving us such a good story, but I want to be chronologically sound. Walkerwear started in 88?
So Fashion in Effect started in 87.
In 87.
We started the actual styling component in 88.
Gotcha.
We still had it around 89. I got robbed really bad at the store. It was really traumatic. And
They broke into the store? I think I remember
so it was
that
New
too.
Year, it was Christmas Eve, and they had a little window you could look into. And anyway, it was ugly. But I from that experience, I was like, okay, we're shutting this down. This is it right here. Like, all right, we're done. And I went to a custom appointment only business.
Right.
And I back to my home studio. People don't know, the first 6 months before I got the lease with Fashion in Effect, I was working out of my house, proof of concept.
Right.
And I was like growing out, busting out of the seams there. So then we went back, but this time we went back like we were bubbling.
Right.
So we were like appointment only. We knew who was coming ahead of time.
Right.
And then we grew, we started working with record companies at this time. So think, I was working with Bad Boy, I was working with Def Jam by now, I was working with Andre and Uptown and Flavor Unit, and doing a lot of styling and a lot of custom work in the Rough and Rugged suit. Mrs. 89 was on the move. So it started popping up on Def Comedy Jam and all these shows. And we were like, we gotta get a logo with this, and that is how the two W's came about in the name Walkerwear. And that's funny because I looked at people I respected, and at that time Willie Smith was a really big inspiration for me. And then he had Willie Wear, and then the other brands that I really respected, like Ralph Lauren, like there were a few, Carhartt, just everybody that I used to go to Sims, and I'd go Oscar de la Renta, all of those brands, Sahari, they were all using their name. So I knew I wanted to use my name, but I wanted to make it hip hop and us, and that's where the wear came in to kind of like, so that's how that came together.
Right. Hip hop was decidedly masculine at that time.
Very much.
Even the fashion lane, Karl Kani,
Yeah.
FUBU, right? Decidedly masculine. Speak for a moment about being a woman in that space and getting your protocols out there to be solid. Like, did you have wars? Did you have to kind of elbow your way in? Like,
I mean, in hindsight, I think it was strategy. I don't think I was that smart at that time to realize that.
Right.
You know, but I think that I was young, I was naive to fear. Like I said, me being naive, I never saw what we couldn't do. I was like, we doing this, you know. And that took men and women on the team. And that took sometimes me sending a man to a meeting or a woman to a meeting.
So you would make that call?
I would make that call in advance.
Right.
I made the call of saying let the product lead, because you're right. First of all, being an entrepreneur in the 80s was like you're half crazy because you wanted a stable job, right? I remember my mom almost cried. She did cry when I got the lease for Fashion in Effect, because I passed the test for firefighters and for to be a firefighter and also to be corrections, and those were great jobs.
That was it. Back in the day,
you know,
getting a civil service job
like,
was
what
everything.
are you talking about?
Right.
You're gonna do this? Don't be your dad again. You know. But I was like, I'm all in. This is what I'm doing. You know. So I mean, those were real things. And then women weren't celebrated the way they're being celebrated now.
Right.
It was very different for women.
Right.
So for me, I can remember having a conversation because I was doubting it, and I asked my dad, do you think men will buy this line if they know a woman is behind it?
Right.
And he said, if you have to ask, you already know the answer. Like, why chance it?
Right.
And that just made sense to me. So I let the product lead.
Right.
And I stayed ambiguous, and so you would see Tretch wearing it,
Right.
you would see Shaq wearing it, you'd see Biggie, you'd see Jason, Jam Master Jay, God bless him. He was very supportive, and people didn't know if it was their line or this line or that line, and that was intentional.
Right.
Besides, I was appreciated all of that support, but yeah, I just wanted the product to speak for itself.
So let's talk briefly about the proliferation of the product and who wore it. You said
Okay.
Shaq and Jam Master Jay, and we know Pop. Pop was iconic
Right.
with that walkaway outfit. Biggie. Who's some of the other people early on that were buying into the product from celebrity, like not just hip hop, but from a celebrity standpoint?
I don't want to offend people. My memory is not what it was. But if I'd say, I would say Naughty by Nature were very supportive. Craig Mack. I would say Queen Latifah. I would say MC Light. Audio 2. Mike Tyson. I would say Onyx. Family. Some of these brands and artists you won't know, but they were Black Flames. I would say Third Base.
Third Base, shout out to MC Surge. He came to the fashion show.
Nice, yeah. There were so many, from Wu-Tang, Method Man, to 50 Cent, to on and on and on and on and on and on. No, it was a lot, and I'm so blessed about it all. I can't even remember everyone offhand. I said Jay. Oh, Jay-Z.
Jay-Z.
Yep,
Right.
Jay-Z.
Right.
Sauce Money. You know, who am I missing? What's that song they did in Marcy? They did a whole rap, and when I saw the video, I was like, wow, it was so many people wearing it. I mean, it's been an amazing career.
So what was the stretch? So look, because people have to understand that you were not an overnight success.
No.
Really, this was a lifetime.
A lifetime of climbing the grind.
Right. But there is a stretch,
Right.
and every good hustler story has what I call the stretch. And the stretch is from the moment you decide to do the work to the moment you ascend to the height of the work.
Okay.
That's what I call the stretch, right? Because that's the climb up. And then you look up and you've made it. Speak about the stretch. Like, how long, like, we're talking 89 to what, like 98? Like, Give us a sense of what the stretch was for you, and at what point did you stand on the top and say, wow, I really have done this thing. I've created this impact.
Okay, so I thought about it quickly,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know how I would answer this if I had a lot more time.
Right.
But the knee-jerk reaction would be from that time I committed to walk-aware to 96, sitting in the MGM and watching Mike Tyson walk out in my shorts in the ring.
Right.
That was the moment to me.
Right.
That was iconic.
And that was the night
where
Pac
I was
got
like,
shot.
wow, that was some, yeah, that was the last night. But yeah, I think it was very surreal to see Mike Tyson being a giant and being from Brooklyn like myself walk out. Me being the first fashion designer to grace a heavyweight ring, and then have him with those 2 big W's. I didn't feel like I was just representing for me. I felt like I was representing for us, especially Brooklyn. And that meant everything to me. And I felt like it meant everything to Mike. So it just was really special because it was outside of just music. Because people consider Mike hip hop too. Because
Yes,
he
he's
is.
absolutely
You
hip
know
hop.
what I mean?
He's hip hop.
So it was just the stars lining up, and it was historical. There were other historical moments, you know, now that I look back. But that for me, I was with my father, and I just remember how special that felt.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I would say on the mountaintop looking down, I can remember the point when I wanted to walk away.
Tell me about that.
And that was probably like when people perceived it at the height. And that was like, there were so many things that happened, but Biggie died, Pac died. The market was becoming oversaturated, and it just was becoming an ugly business. Consumerism, hip hop, fashion, urban fashion, streetwear, whatever category we want to call it, it was being bastardized and pimped. And I didn't want to be part of that anymore. You know, I was watching it, something that I helped build up in its infancy and its pure form, become
Shit show.
a shit show. That's
So
a nice way to
I
say
want to
it.
get into.
And it was, and I'm just saying that to say I'm not, you know, it just, that's the nature of the beast. Corporate America, I will just say, it's nothing personal, it's capitalism. I know that, you know, to me, any form of art, film, fashion, art, music, once we see how we can make money off of it, America, it becomes diluted and there's very little traces of that art form left behind.
Right.
So fashion just became one of them, and particularly streetwear. I think the heartbreaking part for me is watching it be built up by us and then us not participating in the revenue streams that were created from that. And then to watch that rug get pulled from under it and us not be a part of it. I saw it coming, the beginning of the end, and
What were
that's
the
when I
signs
saw.
of it
The
coming?
signs were like Magic, which started out as a serious
Right,
business,
right.
became looking like Freaknik.
Right.
And I knew right then what was going on. No one's writing paper. It was more about seeing and be seen. And so all of those things started happening. People were coming, entertainers, to get free clothes, and no one was doing business anymore. It was about the parties and everything else. And I was like, distractions. And I saw what was happening, and the industry was taken from us. And we allowed that. But we were young. I'm not coming down on anyone. I'm not placing judgment. We were all young. And it's just like with sports and everything else. If you're not educated to the game and the business at a very early age, it's easy to be dominated.
Absolutely. And that's just a precautionary tale on every level.
Absolutely.
You guys were very young, creating what is now a global culture.
Absolutely. And for that, I celebrate that.
Right, you know. I want to get into magic because I want to talk to you about the concept of black magic.
Right?
Right? But before I ask you that, far too often we have these conversations with legends. And I watch them. I watch podcasts, I watch interviews, and they rarely get into what I'm about to ask you. What I want to know is, during this point, like during this stretch, again, calling it the stretch, your ascension into success, how were you with regards to your personal development? Were you happy? Were you taking care of yourself?
No, this is so great.
Right? Like that's it. That's important because a lot of times what happens, and you and I both know this, and people in the audience know this, and people in the room know this, when you're on your grind the most is when you're taking care of yourself the least.
So let's talk about that. I was not taking care of myself, which is why it's so paramount to my existence now.
Right.
Because I know better, and when you know better, you do better.
Right.
And so I was very young. I started at 21. And just like most young people, I'm generalizing now because they're a lot smarter than I was, most of them, but we think we're invincible when we're young.
We do.
And we think, I'll get to all that other stuff later, but let me just do this. Let me chase this bag right now. Let me do this. Let me do that. Whatever it is, it'll come later. I'll start saving later. I'll start getting into financial literacy later because
right.
I'm going to get this million now.
Right.
When the things you want to do the least, those are the things you usually need to do the most. And so being good to yourself and putting your oxygen mask on, so to speak, not to be cliche, but it's true. When you show the world how you treat yourself, you show the rest of the world how to treat you. You know, you set the example. And I think that for me, I paid myself last in transparency. I took care of everyone else. I did not take care of April. And it showed up in other ways. Now, I did work out, but it wasn't so much for, well, it was for health, but it wasn't understanding that a set schedule. Like now, I'm doing it at this time. I meditate. I do visualization exercise. I pray. I have a routine.
You live now what's called a holistic life.
It's such a holistic life.
Right,
An approach. It's
integrated. It's integrated.
Right. It's integrated into the framework of my existence.
Right.
And it was choppy then. It was going with my crew to work out at the gym, or it was, you know, it was spotty. But I got those 16 hours a day in for work. That I did not miss.
Right. Right.
And so what happens when you do that 7 days a week for years and years, there's something called burnout. And it's a very real thing. And most of us get burnt out. Some of us recover and some of us don't. But the unfortunate part is that thing that we have, that talent, that diamond, that gift that God gave you that only you can do, some of us end up hating that thing we fell in love with because we became burnt out. I think that the best thing for me to do was to walk away when I did from the fashion industry, because I found myself, I was able to stand still and assess, to reflect, to pause, to breathe, to fall in love with nature, to fall in love with myself, to hear my thoughts, to look back and become a healthier April, a more holistic lifestyle, and understand that everything I was chasing would come to me faster if I slowed down.
Yeah, I just don't want to discount that, because the fact of the matter is we tell a story and yet people are living it day in and day out.
Yeah.
Even us still, like it's still happening.
It's always a battle. Right? I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Like today was a full day and we're here.
Right.
You know, but you gotta find those ways to be good. Like I'll go home and get myself a bubble bath.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there are things. This rosé right
Shout
now.
out to the rosé. You have to be selfish. You have to be
Absolutely.
selfish. So now I want to talk about Black Magic. Before we go further, I want to have this conversation about the magic show in particular and Black Magic, this idea of black fashion labels, taking ownership of what they were doing. But the reason I want to have it, I just want to frame this for you, is because we live in a society now where everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and yet no one has the strategy or even the stage set to do so. We live in an instantaneous entrepreneur society where I want a reel
Right, instant
that
gratification.
gives me 1 million views, or I want to have a, you know, Ponzi scheme, or what's it called? What's the thing? Forex or Bitcoin, or you know, we.
Thank you for teaching me to save my $1 million.
Right. You know what I mean? We live in a society now where young kids just don't want to work, but they don't necessarily know how to be an entrepreneur. We come from an environment that's analog. We didn't have the trappings of confusion. Thank God, right? We didn't have those trappings.
That's
we
so
didn't,
much more pressure.
Yeah, we didn't have the world in our pocket, right? We didn't have all of those things. And so you kind of were part of a group that set the stage for success by using the bare minimum. And so I want to talk about black magic, you know, just because it's on my list of things to talk about. But I want to frame it with this idea of being an entrepreneur and how arduous that task is. So that people watching, we may have a 22 or 23-year-old watching thinking they're going to get a reel, they're going to make chicken parmesan on a reel and get 1 million views, and you know what I'm saying, pop. That's an illusion.
Is that even sustainable? How
It's
about
not
that?
sustainable, right?
That part.
Right. Right.
So, let me start by saying that there is no downloadable success formula that will tell you, I'm gonna give you make you $1 million tomorrow. There is no microwavable success formula, and you are gonna have to take the stairs to get to the top. The beauty in that is at every level, taking the stairs, you learn and master that stair. And so when you get to the next one, you can sustain now 2 stairs. And when you get to the top, you've done the work through every stair that you climb. And you know what that feels like. You have experience there. And you can convey that to your team. And no one can bullshit you through that because you've done the work. And it's sustainable now. If someone just puts you in a helicopter and puts you on the top of the mountaintop, you're not going to know what the terrain is like to get back down. So it's the same thing with a business.
Facts. That's the rose. I'm sorry. Look, Aisha shaking her head.
We from Brooklyn.
It's a family affair. When you stepped away, what was it, 98, 99?
I stepped away like 99, 2000.
99, 2000.
Yeah.
So you stepped
99,
away
yeah.
from the game. You stepped away from the grind, the hustle, the success, the failures.
I stepped away from Walkaway. I actually was the vice president at Fat Farm for a year with Russell.
Oh.
So
Okay.
That's where I went. Then.
So that's where you went. That's where you landed. And how was that experience?
It was fun. It was really
Fat Farm was
fun.
probably
It was
Fat
at
Farm
the
was
top
hot.
of their game.
Yeah, Fat Farm was
You know,
hot that year.
I was running $100 million company, so I got to work with all of his licensees and manage that business. And it was definitely a trip working with Russell. Shout out to Russell.
Tell us something about the fashion industry that we don't know. Like, tell us about that high-level business, right? You're talking about a $100 million company. You were at the head of it. You had meetings, you had discussions. Give us some insight on what that looks like, what that feels like in terms of a day-to-day thing.
It's not as sexy as people might think. It's work, you know. Most of it is boring work. So when you see the fashion shows, that's like 1% of the whole business. Because you're managing, for me, I was managing licenses. I was talking about this today. Like, at that stage, you have 10 different licensees. So one might be the footwear, one might be the kids brand, one might be the bags, one might be, you know, you have all of these different licensees. But when they show up to Magic, it needs to look like one band, one sound, right? So now I have the work of making sure that everyone's designs that they submit are in the flow of whatever that color story is, whatever that theme is, that it all feels good together, right? So it's not like, what is this? And, you know, it has to look good in the stores. Another thing is Russell actually wanted to approve every design still. So, you know, as a license, so that was a filter process, right? We had to make sure that it was cohesive with what he wanted to represent, you know,
Right.
with Fat Farm. And then people don't think about little things. When you have $100 million brand, you want to make sure your logo is consistent everywhere. So if it's in 1 million stores, you need to make sure everybody's using the same Pantone, PMS, and that color story is the exact same and not off a little bit.
How difficult is that? Because
It's
I
not-
feel like that's difficult.
It's just
Tedious,
It's
right?
tedious.
Tedious.
And then you have to deal with the licensees, because at Magic, we had like a big space and everybody had their own space, but they had different demands. And you had to work and communicate and interact with all of these different licensees and make sure they were happy, but that you were still representing the brand and getting what you needed. So, you know, it pulled out all different kind of skills, besides looking at contracts and agreements and making sure that people send in their royalties on time. So I was familiar with it because I'd done licensing with Walkerware, and that's how I got the position. But it definitely was on a much more massive scale at that time, because they were scaled up so much. You know?
Other than that, other than the time at Fat Farm, what did you do during that time to occupy your mind? Because, like, you have a genius mind. And so I can't imagine it at rest.
It wasn't.
You know what I'm saying?
Even at rest,
Like,
it wasn't.
I can't imagine that at rest.
I remember I left. When I left, I went to N1. And I remember I told Russell I was leaving. He was like, "Shit, I knew you were going to do this. Can't hire an entrepreneur."
Right.
Like, you know, but I went to N1 and I started a women's division called Dimes. And it was mine, and they didn't get it.
Right.
No disrespect. You didn't get it.
Right.
But I was there for a year, and then I left, and then I took time off. I always thought I wanted to do costume wardrobe, so I did an independent film called The King of Hearts. That was fun. It was interesting. I did the Lilith Fair tour with Erykah Badu. I did her merchandising, which was a lot of fun. We did the West Coast, and we did all her merch, and that was a fly tour. So it was just different, you know. And then after that, I just took time to breathe. And then I opened a pet shop because I didn't want to deal with humans anymore. And I love animals. And I
remember
saw
the pet shop. It
Yeah,
was on Fulton in
Fulton.
South Portland.
That's right, the Walker Pet Shop.
Right, I remember that.
And I remember opening Newsweek, and they said that this zip code was the most concentrated zip code in the country for mostly for dogs. That we have the biggest concentration. And I was like, gentrification, all the things, like,
Right.
let me do that. You know?
Right. So 2017, September 2017, the building that we're in now was having their opening. Hip Hop Closet had decided to move from building 139?
131. It was 2018.
2018. 131 into building 77. Kai is also a genius mind. I don't know how she got us to do a fashion show in the lobby of building 77, right? So I'm promoting the fashion show because of course I'm a hosted, even though I'm a Hip Hop Closet model, I never walk fashion shows, that's my shit, right? Just cause, you know, I'm a hosted joint, right? So me and Kai's gonna host it, I'm posting it. Attica, shout out to Attica Torrance. Attica hits me and says, yo, I see you doing the fashion show at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. You may want to connect with Sister April Walker.
Oh.
And I'm like, yo, I know April.
Attica.
I know April, even though me and you ain't really know one another.
Right.
Like, but I knew who you was.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I know April. Connect us. And he connects us.
Right.
That is the beginning for us
Right. Absolutely.
as a tribe.
No
But
shit
you
show.
had already, right, no shit.
No shit. No shit.
Right, no shit show. You had already kind of been back in the game.
Mm-hmm.
The first piece I got from you in this time was the Brooklyn, what's it, Brooklyn Construction? The shirt, the button down. I still rock it. I rocked it the other day, the blue
that's
shirt.
my favorite.
Tell me about when you got back in the game and kind of up to that point where we did the fashion show.
So I had been back in the game for a minute, but I was quiet
Right.
because I took a different approach. So before we were selling retail distribution nationally, overseas, in all the stores, but I didn't want to do that. So I just wanted to pick up my bullhorn and speak to my customers and use fashion as a canvas to express how we were feeling, but also to bridge the gap with culture and with hip hop and with generation X, Y, and Z, because I saw the disconnect happening, right? So I knew I could storytell through fashion without being preachy. And I love the idea that I could have this online platform and maybe make one piece or 1,000 pieces without pressure, right? And me being of a certain age and being seasoned, I wanted to learn how to work these digital tools and platforms because I did not want to become a dinosaur. I want to stay in the game, stay fluid, and move forward, you know?
Right.
So this was a good way for me to stay creative, to reverse engineer, and to have reverse mentorship. I'm big on that, right? I mentor a lot of people, but I believe we can learn from younger people too. So I like that young energy around me. So I got to do all these things with Walkerwear. That was why I was like, let's do this, you know, with the digital world. And Walkerwear.com began. And from that, it ignited and I did when I came back, I did something at the Soho House Berlin. I did a collaboration there. I got to tell my story in Berlin and all these different places. And the world energy feeds energy.
Right.
So there it is. That's how that went.
Right, right. You make awesome pieces.
Thank you.
I got a bunch of them. Right?
Like what you got?
Right, I got a bunch of them. There's a point in which you kind of, I don't want to say flooded. Flood is not the right word. But you got into this groove like pre-pandemic where you was dropping classic pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to understand why I'm bringing this up. In 2020, there's a stat that I always go to when I discuss this sort of stuff, where the sale of high heel shoes decreased by 70% in 2020. At the end of 2020, 70% less high heels were worn.
I understand why.
People were in a pandemic, people were rocking sweats and sneakers. And it's sort of like you came correct with all of this stuff at a time where we needed it the most.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I don't think that you kind of foresaw that.
No,
How could
no.
you foresee that?
That was all the stars lining up.
But how do you look at lifestyle fashion now differently than you did when you had the rough and rugged piece? Like, tell me a bit about how
Wow.
you view lifestyle fashion today versus how you viewed it when you started.
So for me, once again, being pragmatic, I knew coming back, when I came back, to be honest, I had everything from wovens to denim to this, to that, to this. And if you listen, your customer will tell you what they want. And they wanted those classics. And I saw other things move, and some didn't, and some moved slow. But the things I was paying attention to were the sweats were moving. And people would always tell me they loved the fit of my sweats.
Facts.
And then I started seeing them like uniforms, you know, and I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention. The other thing that worked for me is in the 90s, there were so many factories I was working with domestically for denim. Not so much now. And I want to do denim right if I'm going to do it. So I'd rather focus on what I can do great an impact there. And for me, it's right now sweats. Plus, me being seasoned, I love sweats. So I got a million of my walk-wear suits in the closet too,
Right.
because they're my uniforms, my go-tos on a regular, you know. And I feel like my age group, the people that grew up with me in walk-wear, they're on that same page too.
Right.
And then comfort is everything. So, you know, now you can wear heels. You could wear booties. You could wear so many things with your sweats, with some fitted joggers if you're a woman. And then if it's unisex, which our stuff is, you could go either way.
It's an air sensibility too.
It is.
Like,
all of those things.
because
Genderless, all of them.
Because
Lined up.
Walker-Wear is such an iconic brand to people, when you kind of rejuvenated that brand with the sweats, with the raw denim, which I still rock to this day.
I love the raw
I
denim.
love the raw denim. But these pieces, like you said, they were acceptable in professional environments. And maybe I'm bullshit, right? Because I wear sweats all the
But
time.
most of us
But-
do now. Like,
right.
that's the thing in the work environment. So you can do that, which really helps me.
Right. And it just really worked. And you know, the way that you drop pieces, you have like this exclusive
That's
kind
what
of
we had
nature
before,
to
and we
it.
wanted to keep that feel.
Right.
Even online, we only do limited.
Like you
drops.
could miss some shit.
Yeah, if
Like
you
I've
don't,
missed some
sign
shit.
up for our mailing list, because then you get the drops first.
Right.
And if you miss that, don't be mad at me because you were too lazy to be on the mailing list.
Right,
Because you could
exactly.
get it first.
I'm definitely mad at myself that I missed the patent leather W.
I missed the maroon joint, and then I
It was
seen
here,
MC
like,
search with it. I
came
totally
and
missed
went,
it. I
came
totally
and
missed it.
Oh, I got the maroon though.
Yeah, you got the maroon. That's why I mentioned it.
I missed the green one.
How did you miss it? You the man. How did you miss it? You said I missed the green one. What? So, April now, your season. You have a wealth of experience and knowledge and wisdom about so much. There's a requirement that we have in this life when we've attained a certain level of wisdom, we're required to kind of share it.
Right?
I know you're in schools. We did the book signing here for Walker Gems, which is an amazing book. If you haven't gotten that book, Walker Gems is an amazing book. You need to go copy that. So I know a bit about your give back and how you honor that requirement of service. But you speak for a moment about that requirement of service and how do you go about honoring that?
Look, I'm going to give God all the glory right now and say my life has just been one big blessing. With the failures, with the successes, it's just really been, I'm forever grateful. And I feel like God did not give me all of that experience for me to hoard it, for me to go to the grave with it. And what are we without our village? We are the village. And if we want to do better, we need to do better. So for me, I was raised in a community. You know, I grew up with Uhuru Sasa,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and that's part of one of the fundamental keys, like the give back, the community.
Right.
So helping each other, cooperation. And I really, if I preach it, I want to live it. So that's what we're doing, you know, we help each other. My goal, Marlon, is to help others, to empower others with the tools, the resources, and the knowledge they need to design the lives they imagine, because so many of us are not living our purpose. So many of us are, but usually it's fear that paralyzes people, or people thinking they're too old. And I could tell you a million success stories that say differently. So it's really a mindset. So once your mind, body, and spirit are in alignment, anything is possible. And I just want to be one of those catalysts to help a little bit as part of that journey.
I want you to talk about the future then female. I want you to talk about some of the wellness work that you're doing.
Okay.
I want you to talk about this drop, because this is a drop.
Yeah, this is
right?
a drop coming too for
Yeah.
Women's History Month. So definitely, this flew out last time, so get it, you guys. I'm bought and I'm bossed.
Mhm.
And yeah, so The online courses are coming. We've been teaching now as a disruptor for about 11 years. And I'm now shifting and pivoting and doing some online work. And I'm going to be doing a class on pillars needed to thrive and not just to survive in fashion. I'm also doing a lot of mentorship work with wellness meets entrepreneurship and creativity, because we have to learn how to self-care. And that doesn't mean not doing the work. It just means being intentional about yourself and your health, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially, what that means. And then the Future Been Female Tour, you guys, we have a tour going on, and that's coming in 24. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be celebrating women that have contributed to culture, and it's multifaceted. It's going to be a culinary experience with cocktails and mocktails, and we're going to do shopping experiences and an exhibit and panel discussions, and just really celebrate each other. And it will be many different cities, so be on the lookout for that and join our mailing list.
I want to ask you about Hip Hop 50.
Right?
Right. And I'm going to ask you about it, but I'm sitting here looking at you, and you look like Papa Jack. You look like your father.
You distracted?
Yeah, but because I'm a father of a daughter,
Right?
and my daughter mocks me.
You guys are twins.
Right, like she mocks me. Like I said, babe, do you know what I do for a living? Yeah, you work in the community. She don't really know what I do, but the fact that she said that
Right.
makes me understand what she sees that I do.
You're living it.
She will be an embodiment of me. In a lot of ways, you're an embodiment of Papa Jack. Do you think that? Do you look at that?
Yeah,
Like, do you see that?
I do in different ways. We're alike in some ways and different in others, but he's definitely had a major influence in my life.
Yeah.
My mom and my dad. I come from very strong women too, so shout out to all the women that have sacrificed for me to be sitting here.
The first time I ever met him was at Milk River. You guys were at Milk River.
Yep.
Remember he left his phone?
Yeah, but we had to.
I ran out and gave, right. And that was the first time I had ever seen him in my life. And he was like a very hip, cool OG.
Right.
Right? But I saw what was the name of the piece that you guys did? It was a couple of years back. It was a talk that you
Oh,
did.
right. I forgot the name of it.
I forgot the name
Yeah,
of it too. But I learned so much about
I think we did that
here, right. I learned so much about him there, and it's just like, again, I just see so much of he's a dreamer, but being a dreamer is necessary sometimes. You need a dreamer on your team.
You have to live your life.
Right.
And your purpose.
Right.
I mean, I could call him now. He'd be like, I got to call you back. I'm making a beat.
What are you talking about? I feel like, what?
My father turns 80 this year, you guys. Just to let you know. He's dead serious. But I'm like so inspired by that. If I could have half of that passion at that age, I'll still be living.
Facts. And that's what he's doing. So Hip Hop 50, how do you feel about it?
I feel great in terms of, they said we weren't going to be here, and here it is, Hip Hop 50, right? They said hip hop was a fad and it was going to go away, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I celebrate Hip Hop 50 because so many people have paved the way and created so many professions, careers. We're sitting in a hip hop closet. It's just on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that be mindful while we're participating in all of these events and extravaganzas this year. We need to be mindful of the intentionality behind each of those events and who's putting them together and how it's being, the narrative, who's telling the narrative and who's taking advantage of the narrative, to be nice. But yeah, I celebrate it, and then I say we're going to have some authentic moments, and then we're going to have some moments that are for, just like we went through Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a year for us to make sense, but I'm a big I'm always gonna say we need to build our own tables,
Mhm.
and that's that.
Mhm. And that leads me to what my last question is before we go to Kai and we figure out what the audience, you know, has in terms of questions. But you have a saying, and I'm gonna fuck the saying up because I've been drinking.
Lateral cooperation
right,
creates vertical movement.
right. So now look, I created a hashtag We're Your Friends because you and Kai
I love that way.
kind of inspired me to, and actually it comes from a conversation with Timbisa.
Okay.
Because Timbisa also, and at some point we gotta have Timbisa sit here, 'cause she's
Yeah.
also an icon.
Yes.
But she's has a genius mind, and her and I were talking, and she had mentioned to me like, yo, I really love the fact that you rock Walker Wear and you rock House of Swag, and you show love
Right.
to these, you know,
Right.
businesses. And I said, well, listen, at the end of the day, I'm Hip Hop Closet.
Right.
Like I've been here since the start, and Kaisha and Malik kind of proved to me why you should support
Your own.
your own. So I just want you to get an opportunity to talk about that. Like, how important is it to be connected to your own and shopping and wearing your own? You know, especially we have a plethora of black women designers.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Go on and on.
Right. Hold on.
I think
That's not me.
No.
I think that is paramount to our existence because, you know, it helps the dollar circulate in our own communities,
Right.
but it's a form of self-love too, right? And self-proof. If you say you love yourself, you have to see your reflection in other black and brown women. So you supporting them is a form of that love,
Right.
you know, and it's
Right.
telling the world how to show up.
Mhm.
And the more it's practiced, the more it creates contagious behavior. And the more we empower individuals in our communities, the more we're empowering our communities and helping to create a healthy ecosystem in the world. So it goes back to building our own tables. It's key.
And that's real. And ecosystem, that's a good word because we hear all the time about how quickly the black dollar leaves the community. But it's said in a space where the fault is on us. But the fact of the matter is, a big reason why the black dollar leaves the community so quickly is because every culture and every corporation understands the power of the black dollar, so they market to us
Right.
all the time. And so really the discipline comes in understanding that you have to be intentional about how you spend your money. And that's kind of something I learned from you and learned from working with Kai and learned from being around you guys, is that there has to be an intentionality about this.
And you probably, because you've been privy to being behind the magic curtain, you get to see some of the challenges that black and brown businesses have that other businesses may not, that the average consumer wouldn't even think about.
Right, right. You happy now?
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm so good.
I love it.
I've been spending
I love it.
I've been spending some time in Colorado, so
Yeah.
it's been a great offset and an integrated lifestyle to my wellness journey.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'm
yeah.
planning to come out there for football season when
Oh, with prime time?
Yeah, I'm planning to come
That's
out there and
dope,
see, so
yeah.
I'm definitely gonna
Denver's
connect.
on fire right now.
Yeah, it's killing
You gotta
it. It's
hit us
killing
up.
it. You like Colorado?
I love it.
It's beautiful?
Beautiful.
Is it expensive?
Not as expensive as New York, but it's not, you know.
It's not cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
You find peace there?
A lot.
I feel that. I feel that. Definitely, I feel that. When you came back to New York, I felt like you were very much at peace. So that's good. That's a good thing. Kai, what's up?
Yeah, so
What you got? I see you been, so y'all don't see behind the scenes, right? Because y'all can't see behind the scenes. But Kai's been like scribbling and walking around scribbling, so she got a whole thing. So that's what I'm asking. Kai, what's up?
So yeah, people were saying you did a very good job and
I don't
asking
care.
all
I
of the
always do a
questions.
good job. I ain't worried about me. I'm not worried about me. What you got?
I know one thing that's like super hard for businesses to grow and scale up is finding their dream team. So I really want to talk about like how did you find your dream team back from fashion to fashion, and where are they now? Like how, you know, like
How have they grown? Yeah. So my dream team is funny. I was so young, but I took the Rubik's Cube approach, figuring out what I needed to make the win, so to speak, right? I knew I needed sales. I knew I needed marketing. I knew I needed great tailors and craftsmanship. I knew I needed a foreman for the days I wasn't there. So, so I started looking for individuals. I looked at, in terms of women, being that it's funny, I'm gonna sound probably sexist now, but being that I'm dealing with menswear, I knew I wanted women to work with me because it just makes sense to me, right? And so I knew my neighborhood at that time because that was my cipher, so to speak. And so there was a young woman who I would see all the time, and I knew her very well because I grew up with her family, and that's the Walkers. They happen to have the last same names, Maurice, Chris, and Cola Walker. And I'd always see Cola, and we were cool. She was a little younger than me, but I liked the way Cola carried herself. And I remember it like it was yesterday because she became my right hand. She loved the custom, but I stopped on the corner of Clinton and Green one day walking down the street. And I was like, hey, Cola. And I said, I want to talk to you about some business. I think da-da-da-da. She was like, yeah, I'll come through. And she didn't come through once or twice. Well, when we connected, she came through. She saw it, she got it, and the rest was history. Like, she just got to it. And I loved Cola because I worked with a lot of entertainers. So it was really important as a woman at that time not to be perceived to just be all business, but still to be able to be approachable and friendly. That's a hard mix in a very misogynistic industry like hip hop in the 80s. Right. And she was masterful at that. Like, she could sit there and she would smoke a blunt with you, but then she was like, all right, so you writing this order up right now? How we doing?
So that's we don't like that. But it's what my tribe is dope. Like, but I didn't have an entrepreneur.
Right.
Or a fashion sister. You know, like Marlon was just down for whatever.
Right.
Like, he was like Pop Smoke. Like, I'm with it all.
With it. You with it, I'm with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was like really my ride or die. Malik is a visionary, but he's a quiet visionary. Like, you ain't gonna see him, you know. But
right.
So when I found April and when you linked us, and as soon as she was like, I'm not with a shit show, I was like, oh yeah. Like,
right.
Because I'm not with a shit show.
I
definitely don't like shit shows.
But look, I want to say, even though you're right, but the fact is, Kai, we was doing this shit at 131.
We were, just on a different...
We was filming the fashion shit where we had started, you was doing this already. So it's not like you came to this building and decided... We were already on track.
It was, So this space was just like an extension of what I wanted to manifest.
Right.
And like I always need a partner to unload to, or to like spill ideas out on. Like when I was in San Diego, I lived in the spot that the Chargers lived in. It was dope. It was like I don't even know why I'm here, but I kind of know why I'm here. But they had this like trail that went around the property. It was probably like, I don't know, maybe 2 mile trail or whatever. And you were really walking like up on a hilltop in the woods, like, you know, but it was like carved out right below the complex. And I had my girl that had moved out there with me. She was she had graduated from Howard with me, and we both moved out there. We would just walk on the trail together, and I would just unload to her. We would like walk during like lunch breaks and stuff like that. And I would just unload to her, and she would receive. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's dope. Like, maybe you should do this." But you know, like, so just for anybody that wants to do something, just get it out and visualize it and find that partner that'll be like, yeah, and then they'll pour it into you too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could, like help them with their things.
And actually, that actually creates, that's that slogan that you have, because that influenced me, because it was sort of like, wow, like we talking this shit and then she's doing this shit, so like I could do shit too. Like, why not? Right? Because all it takes is us deciding to do something.
Right.
You know,
That's all it takes.
and so that's kind of what I want to unearth. And I know we getting long-winded. We about to end it right now, but I want you to understand, people who are watching, right, viewers, that there's really a fundamental way that you got to decide to be successful, and that decision doesn't come from the actual thing. It really comes from a mindset of envisioning yourself and manifesting yourself into that space. And it starts very early on, right? It starts with an idea that you have, but then you have to share it. And this is the thing. This is the thing, Kai. Everything that you share is like a seed, right? So when you share a seed with someone, that person can either water it or they can neglect it. So you got to be very careful about who you share your seeds with. Because when you share your seeds with the right person, they will nurture them and allow it to grow. When you share your seeds with the wrong person, they will neglect that shit, and then you die. That's why they say, listen, don't tell what you want to do with everybody.
But you also have to understand that there will be people that you share your seed with and they won't water it.
Facts.
They will
They
not
just
water
won't.
it. They might even put it in the corner so that
in the dark.
no sun. Yeah,
Right.
but you have to know that, my seed, you have to see the tree that's going to grow from the seed.
You got to see
You got to see that. And so you have to recognize when somebody puts your seed in the corner, like, nah, B, you're not touching my seed anymore.
Right.
And now you move on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And what I say to that is, it's not another person's responsibility to believe in your dream.
It's yours.
You
Correct.
know, and I will say this, and it's been said already, but at the moment of commitment, like when you really commit, like, I'm doing this, the world will conspire to assist you. Have you ever seen, like, you decide, I want to buy this car, and you think you've just seen this car and it's the best car in the world, and right after that you start
You
seeing
see
that
it all
car
over. You
everywhere.
see it everywhere.
That's how life works.
Right.
So just own that.
Right.
It's crazy because
Right. That's true.
this is bad random, but we all friends here, right?
Fuck it. We've been drinking. It's fine.
I felt like I looked like Penny Proud today, right? Okay, y'all. All right.
Look. All right, look.
So when I was driving, I had to go up to Westchester for something.
Right.
And so as I was driving, why did I see 2 billboards
Penny
advertising the Proud?
There you go.
And I never see any advertisements for the Proud.
Yeah.
It's like,
about.
right, that's
Right,
this
because a
is
new season just dropped.
yes.
But it went in your
And I say that
mind,
to say that when you think about something and when you're in tune with it, you
will.
have to always pay attention
Right.
Intention
to
Because the
what's
signs are
around
out there.
you. You know,
Yeah.
like I try to, like, even if you're running late, if you're doing this, you are always where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So you gotta
Always.
relax and just like look around and be like,
Right.
oh, okay, maybe that's the reason why.
Right.
But you know what the Petty Proud, okay, you know what the Petty Proud billboard said?
What?
It said legacy is power.
Ooh.
Wow.
This is what I'm trying to say. This
And
is what I'm trying to say.
on that note,
You gotta say.
we're gonna let you go. 'Cause listen, we getting
Because
too
we could go on
right.
and on.
We getting too deep,
This
and
is for
we're
the
a family.
subscription.
Right.
This is for the subscription. Like, we're gonna-
This is what we do. But listen, I'd like to thank my sister April Walker for coming through and sharing your wisdom,
Thank
sharing
you
your
for the
jewels.
conversation.
They can still get Walker Gems on walkerway.com.
They can still buy the Walker Jim's book and stay tuned because we are going to have a membership coming, and you don't want to miss.
You don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that.
Yes.
She got a piece coming out. She got the gray on gray. I ain't gonna give you too much, but I'm telling you,
New drop is coming. in
new drop
February.
is coming. You need that. I want to thank Kaisha as always, Hip Hop Closet, for giving us the wind beneath our wings to make sure that we can make this happen. We're gonna keep doing this. This has been curated lovely. We've had the first 3 episodes. We've had a lot of positive reinforcement behind it. So we're gonna keep going.
Who's next? week?
Like,
Y'all can
comment.
share? No.
Next week we have Jibo the Pro.
Yes.
From DJ
Nice.
Double R mixtapes. So we're taking it out of Brooklyn. So Jibo is somebody who I knew as a child, as a young person coming up in hip hop. He has an amazing story.
Not
And
bad.
we used to carry his mixtape.
Yo, the brother has an amazing story. I don't want to give it too much away. Y'all need to tune in next Tuesday. But, I just want to thank you guys. And, we do this for you. Nothing that we do we do in a silo. We do it for the people, for the culture. All right? How we doing? People showing love?
Yes, no, mad love. It's been great.
All right.
They're like tuning out because we're leaving. But
Yeah, we're out.
all right.
We're out.
Good night.
Next Tuesday.
Her, and you never had to worry. I could send her instead of going myself, and I never had to worry about her crossing the line or playing herself or worried about any stories coming back to me because she was professional. And she treated my business like it was her business. And so as that, I always loved Cola.
Shout out to Cola.
What I wanna uplift, and Kai, can you come?
And they were family.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's fine. I'm saying, what I want to uplift is this connection, because over the last 4 years, there's been a solid connection between Walkaway and between Hip Hop Closet,
Yeah.
and I want to kind of get an opportunity for you guys to kind of explain
That.
how that has built.
Okay, so you want to start or should I start?
No, you could start.
Okay, so from the fashion show, I think that was the first. So first, it was a fashion show. They
Yeah.
called about the fashion show, and
That was me.
that was you.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Marlon.
That was it.
And we had some meetings, and the fashion show, you guys, it was fabulous.
That shit was.
It was flaming.
It was really,
Flame.
really
We
good.
tore it down
It
in
was
Building
fire.
77.
Yeah, we did. And I really credit Kai for the vision, for the execution,
Well,
for bringing it all together. And I remember, literally, she didn't know me, and I remember it was kind of last minute. I can remember saying, because she teases
I
me all
spoke to
the
you
time.
like a month before the show,
Right,
which is
and I
like,
jumped in
yeah.
and made it happen. But
Yeah.
I remember saying, like, I can't be involved in a shit show, and she teases me all the time about that. But you know, she took it on the chin, and she came in, and after I was just like, wow, I was so impressed. And then, I don't know how, but we just. Energy feeds energy, and I think we were the same tribe. We had the same principles. We were both black women in business, and I really felt the support genuinely just from her extending that olive branch, right, with the fashion show. And then I'm like, how can I help you? And it just started going back and forth like tennis.
like tennis,
you know,
right?
that's
like,
what we do.
and hold and serve.
And then shout out to Tony Grant. House
Yeah,
of
shout out
Swag,
to
because
Tony,
She was another,
Right.
She became our other sister, and it just worked. And I don't ever think like we've ever had a problem. And I feel like, you know, it's synergistic. So we celebrate each other, we support each other, and we all have our own businesses, but we Voltron. And we share information that can help each other grow, and all of the things that we should be doing in our community for each other. But we try to set the examples amongst ourselves.
Right. And so what I'll say, and I want Kai to talk. and
What
she's
you
like,
want me to
"Behind the
say?"
scenes, you talk.
I had the
But what I want all
rosé.
people to
It's a long
understand
day.
is Kaisha.
That was a mar.
Right. Kaisha has really set a standard of excellence with how we do everything, right? And I'm just saying everything because I'm like, that's my sister. Like, we've been family for a long time. But like, I can remember us. So me and Kai have always had a good relationship. We've always been friends. But when she started Hip Hop Closet, that's when not the Wire. What was before the Wire?
The corner.
The corner was out, right?
Yeah.
So
I
Kai
just
had
moved
just
home.
moved back.
Yeah.
Kai had just moved back from San Diego, where she had a great job, fucking going in water pipes and shit, whatever that was, right? But she was doing her thing in San Diego, living in a complex with like San Diego Chargers players and shit. Like, she was living the corporate life. She came home, her and her brother started Hip Hop Closet, and she came back to New York. She was living in Jersey at the time. She would be in New York during the weekend, and I had cable, which at the time, we talking 97, 98, niggas ain't really had cable.
Right.
So I had cable, so she would come to the crib.
The premium.
Right, I had the premium, I had the HBO, right? So she would come to the crib. And like, sometimes I would cook, sometimes I wouldn't, but the gist of it is that we would watch the corner and we would be talking about everything else but the corner.
Right.
And she like just has a way of visualizing and manifesting. And I really was like a passenger on the ride.
Manifestation.
Right, because I would sit there and I would listen to her, and at the time, like, I ain't doing the shit I'm supposed to be doing anyway.
That's
like,
my manifestation partner.
Yeah, like,
This morning, We did it, right?
Yeah, we did it.
I
I'm
texted
telling
this
you.
morning,
Like,
here's my manifestation, what's yours? And she sent me back something powerful. So
Yo, even in our early 20s, she would
she's
come to the
always
crib
been
and she
like
would
that.
talk that shit,
But
right?
that's what creators do.
Right. And so even how I started modeling, she's like, yeah, nah, come through and rock. And I'm like, okay, bet. I'm showing up in my regular shit and we are modeling. And now we become...
You become that model.
The crossroads for me was at, and she knows this, I was in the Poconos one time at Crossings in the mall. This is early on. And somebody walked past me and was like, yo, I was looking up Pele Pele jackets and I saw you. Like, you model. It made me realize that everything that she had been kind of pushing, that shit was fact. And so, so I'm saying all this to say, Kai, because you manifested so much in terms of what we have now as a tribe, like, talk for a minute about what you saw early on in terms of your relationship with April.
My tribe is dope, but I
In
didn't
a
have
big
an
way.
entrepreneur.
Right.
Or a fashion sister. You know, like, Marlon was just down for whatever.
Right.
Like, he was like
Right.
Pop
I got
Smoke.
you.
Like,
Right.
I'm with it all.
I'm with it. You with it, I'm with it.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was like really my ride or die. Malik is a visionary, but he's a quiet visionary. Like, you ain't gonna see him, but
Right.
so when I found April and when you linked us, and as soon as she was like, I'm not with a shit show, I was like, oh yeah. Like,
Right.
because
I'm not with a shit show.
I definitely don't like shit shows.
But look, I want to say, even though you're right, but the fact is, Kai, we was doing this shit at 131.
We were just on a different.
We was filming the fashion shit
Yeah,
where we
we had
had,
started,
we was
yeah.
doing this
Yeah.
already. So it's not like you came to this building and decided.
You
Right.
already
We were
have-
already on track.
It was So this space was just like an extension of what I wanted to manifest.
Right.
And like I always need a partner to unload to or to like spill ideas out on. Like when
Right.
I was in San Diego, I used I lived in the spot that the Chargers lived
Right.
in. It was dope. It was like I don't even know why I'm here, but I kind of know why I'm here. But they had this like trail that went around the property. It was probably like, I don't know, maybe 2 mile trail or whatever. And you were really walking like up on a hilltop in the woods, like,
Right.
but it was like carved out right below the complex. And I had my girl that had moved out there with me. She was she had graduated from Howard with me, and we both moved out there. We would just walk on the trail together, and I would just unload to her. We would like walk
Dreams.
during like lunch breaks and stuff like that. And I would just unload to her, and she would receive it. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's dope. Like, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Maybe you should do this." But so
Right.
just for anybody that wants to do something, just get it out and visualize it and find that partner that'll be like, yeah, and then they'll pour it into you too. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like,
It's that
you
energy.
could, like help
Right.
them with their things.
And actually, that actually creates, that's that slogan that you have, because that influenced me, because it was sort of like, wow, like we talking this shit and then she's doing this shit, so like I could do shit too.
Right,
Like,
why not?
Right.
why not, right?
Yeah.
Because all it takes is us deciding to
Right,
do something.
right.
That's all it takes.
And so that's kind of what I want to unearth. And I know we getting long-winded. We about to end it right now, but I want you to understand, people who are watching, right, viewers, that there's really a fundamental way that you got to decide to be successful, and that decision doesn't come from the actual thing. It really comes from a mindset of envisioning yourself and manifesting yourself into that space. And it starts very early on, right? It starts with an idea that you have, but then you have to share it. And this is the thing. This is the thing, Kai. Everything that you share is like a seed, right? So when you share a seed with someone, that person can either water it
Yeah.
or they can neglect
Very.
it. So you got to be very careful about who you share your
energy.
seeds with, because when
Yeah.
you share your seeds with the right person, they will nurture them and allow it to grow. When you share your seeds with the wrong person, they will neglect that shit, and then that's why they say, listen, don't tell what you want to do with everybody.
But you also have to understand that there will be people that you share your seed with and they won't water it.
Facts.
They will
They
not
just
water
won't.
it. They
Right.
might even put it in the corner so
Right,
that
in the
it
dark.
gets no sun. Yeah,
Right.
like, but you have to know that yo, my seed, you have to see the tree that's gonna grow from the seed.
You gotta see.
You gotta see that. And so you have to recognize when somebody puts your seed in the corner, like, nah, B, you're not touching my seed anymore.
Right.
And now you move on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And what I say to that is it's not another person's responsibility to believe in your dream.
It's yours.
You
Correct.
know, and I will say this, and it's been said already, but at the moment of commitment, like when you really commit, like I'm doing this, the world will conspire to assist you. Have you ever seen, like, you decide, I want to buy this car, and you think you've just seen this car and it's the best car in the world, and right after that, you start
You
seeing
see
that
it all
car
over. You
everywhere.
see it everywhere.
That's how life works.
Right.
So just own that.
Right.
It's crazy because
Right. That's true.
this is mad random. But we all friends here, right?
Fuck it. We've been drinking. It's fine.
I felt like I looked like Penny Proud today, right? Okay, y'all. All right.
Look. All right, look.
So when I was driving, I had to go up to Westchester for something.
Right.
And so as I was driving, why did I see 2 billboards
A Penny
advertising the Proud?
There you go.
And never, like, I never see any advertisements for the Proud.
Yeah.
It's like,
about.
right, that's
Right,
this
because the
is-
new season just dropped.
Yes.
But it went in your
And I say that
mind.
to say that when you think about something and when you're in tune with it,
You
you
will.
have to always pay attention
Right.
Intention
to
Because the
what's
signs are out
around
there.
you. You know,
Yeah.
like I try to, like, even if you're running late, if you're doing this, you are always where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So you gotta
Always.
relax and just like look around and be like,
Right.
oh, okay, maybe that's the reason why.
Right.
But you know what the Petty Proud, okay, you know what the Petty Proud billboard said?
What?
It said legacy is power.
Ooh.
Wow.
This is what I'm trying to say. This
And
is what I'm trying to say.
on that note,
You gotta say.
we're gonna let you go. 'Cause listen, we getting
'Cause
too
we could go on and
right.
on.
We getting too deep.
This
and
is for
we're
the
a family.
subscription.
Right.
This is for the subscription. Like, we gotta-
This is what we do. But listen, I'd like to thank my sister April Walker for coming through and sharing your wisdom,
Thank
sharing
you
your
for the
jewels.
conversation.
They can still get Walker Gems on walkerway.com.
They can still buy the Walker Jim's book and stay tuned because we are going to have a membership coming and you don't want to miss
You don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss that.
Yes.
I want, she got a piece coming out. She got the gray on gray. I ain't gonna give you too much, but I'm telling you,
New drop is coming in
new drop
February.
is coming. You need that. I want to thank Kaisha as always, Hip Hop Closet, for giving us the wind beneath our wings to make sure that we can make this happen. We're gonna keep doing this. This has been curated lovely. We've had the first 3 episodes. We've had a lot of positive reinforcement behind it. So we're gonna keep going.
Who's next? week?
Like,
Y'all can
comment.
share? No.
Next week we have Jibo the Pro. From DJ
nice.
Double R mixtapes. So we're taking it out of Brooklyn. So Jibo is somebody who I knew as a child, as a young person coming up in hip hop. He has an amazing story.
And we used to carry his mixtape.
Yo, the brother has an amazing story. I don't want to give it too much away. Y'all need to tune in next Tuesday. But, I just want to thank you guys. And, we do this for you. Nothing that we do in a silo. We do it for the people, for the culture. All right? How we doing? People showing love?
Yes, no, mad love. It's been great.
All right.
They're like tuning out because we're leaving. But
Yeah, we're out.
all right.
We're out.
Good night.
Next Tuesday.